Good evening, how's your day been? Welcome back to Gooner Fanzine TV. Got a very special guest tonight, Matt Bazell, who's co-authored the Arsenal book. We've only got one song, along with Mark Andrews. Very pleased to have you on the show tonight. We've obviously got Dan the Man Mountney to chip in as well once he finishes his beer. Just talk us through the book. We obviously saw you at the Gunners on Saturday night. There was a big do going on. Really, really good night for everyone. Talk us through it.
It was an old school sing-along on Saturday. It was the book launch. We've only got one song, so it's a songbook, it's a chant book. So we've got 425 songs and chants over the years from Arsenal. And we're going to go. It's not just obviously not just the Emirates. We've got Highbury, but it's not just Highbury. So we're going back all the way to the Woolwich days as well. So in the days when Arsenal was a South London club. So we're telling the history of the club through the chants.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, I can imagine the research was good fun.
The research was good fun, and it's good that there was two of us writing it. I mean, I started writing it myself, and I wanted to get some songs from the South London days. So I contacted a guy called Mark Andrews.
Okay,
Mark's he's an historian on Arsenal pre-Highbury, and he's such a good expert on that. And he came back with so many good things. I asked Mark if he'd like to co-author it. And because it's a compilation book, it's two brains are better than one. We can just pack it full of so much more things. So a lot of it there was research in there. A lot of it was stuff that we've heard by just as fans going to matches. And obviously we had to research a lot as well. But it was a fun book. It was a really good fun book to write, and I think it was great. There was two of us doing it as opposed to one.
Absolutely. And obviously, it seemed like the night went really well. We got we were there eventually, basically. We missed sort of Jar and Riders of the Night because we'd been sort of drinking elsewhere, shall we say. But it was a good night, wasn't it? We got there and there's still a good atmosphere going on there.
It was a hell of an atmosphere. That was
Dan's there as well.
That was the Gunners pub hasn't been packed like that in ages, and that's the best. That's such a great Arsenal pub, and there were so many people came. I think more people came for the Riders than were there necessarily for the book, but we sold quite a few copies.
Excellent.
On the night, and it was an old-fashioned piss-up, if I can use that expression. It was a good night. It was a good sing-along.
Absolutely. Just in terms of the songs, then, we went through a few of them with Jar last week, Andy, and he sort of highlighted a few. But what's your favourite? What's your favourite Arsenal song then?
Personally, we've got 425 in the book. I couldn't narrow it down to one because there's so many great songs over the years. But the one I'm happiest about, there's two I'm happy are in the book. Number one, there's a Michael Watson. Now, anyone who knows their boxing remembers Michael Watson, and I've got to know Michael well over the past few years because I've been collaborating about doing a film screenplay on him and a biopic, and there was a Michael Watson testimonial.
I was at that game,
And there was remember the song "There's Only One Michael Watson." So I'm glad that's in there, and we've got the first ever Arsenal chant recorded. From the Woolwich days.
How'd you manage that then?
Well, Mark, I did, that's why I got Mark involved. So the first ever, it's not necessarily the first ever one, but it's the first ever one that's been recorded.
So what year would that have been?
1892.
Okay, so we were formed in 1886, so actually 6 years old, and you've got the first song.
It's called Tarara Bumdie.
Right, okay.
Which sounds African, doesn't it? Tarara but it's an old music hall song. It's a famous music hall song. And it went Tarara Bumdie, the Arsenal won today.
Brilliant. We have to get that started again.
Definitely get that. There is no chance of that. We can't even get the most we can't even get Come On You Gunners.
I know. Well, what did it feel like listening to voice Arsenal fans from 1892, like the first time? Did you actually listen to it?
No, when I say recorded, it recorded it as in newspaper articles.
Oh, okay, right,
So it wasn't filmed. It was a news. Mark had researched that, and there was a newspaper article from 1892, and that's the first note of any Arsenal fan song or anything like that. So whilst it might not necessarily be the first ever Arsenal song, it's the first one that's ever been mentioned, and that dates back to 1890. But the other one that interests, there's so many in the book. We don't have an image of the book here, right? But the people watching, there should be a little image of the book right here.
Yes, we will do that.
There's so many.
We'll cut that bit.
There's 425 in there, but the one that really interests me as well is "You'll Never Walk Alone."
Okay.
Arsenal fans used to sing "You'll Never Walk Alone." Apparently, there's a lot of.
Well, wasn't that a Jerry and the Pacemakers song in the early 60s?
Yeah. But so
what sort of era are we talking? Sorry, yeah,
we're talking late 60s. I think. And Mark put this one. Mark was the one who put this in. Mark's knowledge of sort of 60s and 50s and stuff like that was very, very good, and he included this one. Now, not just Arsenal, but a lot of fans throughout the country would sing "You'll Never Walk Alone." It was just a communal terrace song. And as Liverpool started getting good in the 1970s, and it was a Liverpool band that sung it, it just became synonymous with Liverpool, and everyone else just thought, whatever, let them have it. We don't want to be associated with that. But it were Arsenal fans on the North Front who used to sing "You'll Never Walk Alone." And the other one, from was "Play Up Arsenal."
Okay.
You know how "Play Up Pompey" is the famous song. "Play Up Pompey."
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a big song for Arsenal back in the early days.
Right. Okay. Well, we're sort of talking.
I think we're talking the Plumstead, South London days. "Play Up Arsenal, Play Up."
Yeah. Wow.
So I like that's that's why I'm so glad I got Mark Andrews involved in the book, because I wouldn't have known about that. Mark had the knowledge to bring these songs in the book. But that's what I like about the book is just, even as the co-author of the book, I learned a load of stuff that I didn't know before. Yeah. And people reading this book, there are all these chants that they're going to read about and stuff they'd never associate with Arsenal. And
that's incredible.
It brings back a lot of memories.
Absolutely.
They're obviously kind of two of the more bizarre ones that you wouldn't really kind of expect from Arsenal fans. Were there any others that stood out that you didn't think would be kind of Arsenal related or that you'd never heard before?
Yeah, loads in the book. So I can't pick one off the top of my head right now, but the book is full of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily associate with Arsenal. And I don't want to get too controversial with it either, but there's a whole chapter in there about the Arsenal hooligan mob from in the 70s. There's a whole chapter in there called Arsenal Aggro. Yeah. Because I went on a website and asked people to tell me their favourite Arsenal chants, because I'd like to include them in the book. And all these chants came in that were from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, which were hooligan songs. Yeah. Can
you think any of the top of your head?
We had joy, we had fun, we had Tottenham on the run, stuff like stuff like that. But "Ooh to be a Gooner," that's the other thing. "Ooh to be a Gooner" is a universal Arsenal song. All fans would sing that song.
The first one that springs to mind, really.
It was a mob song. Yeah, the Gooner. So
I met up. Yeah, well, I'm sure we could all talk about days when that's been sung back in the 80s. But it was almost like a rallying cry, wasn't it?
It was a rallying cry, as was Jesus said, Paddy. Yeah. We can talk about that one. That's a very unique song to Arsenal as well. But Spurs would call Arsenal fans Gooners as a derogatory term, and Arsenal fans, quite the mob anyway, they like that name. Yeah. So that's where that song. But a lot of people wouldn't know that's the history of that. So there's a whole chapter in there of hooligan songs, which a lot of people would never associate with Arsenal because they don't really know about Arsenal in those times. The fan base in the 80s and the 70s and even the 90s was. The Arsenal had that element, particularly in the 80s, and a lot of people wouldn't associate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were just talking off camera briefly about the sort of terrace fashions and things like that, and obviously we both sort of remembered the Herd and the fact they were sort of proper 80s designer gear back in the day. I mean, everyone talks about Liverpool having all the gear from European trips, but Arsenal would have. Obviously, But just in terms of Arsenal being the most fashionable sort of hooligans in London, and fans, to be fair.
Yeah, they were. They always had.
Remember when Charlie Nicholas came in '83 and it was all long hair and or say long hair like perms and everything, and I remember having a feelers like fire trousers, everything like that.
Arsenal's always had style as a club, maybe not so. I think the problem with modern football now is that everything becomes a little bit generic and same old. But if you look at Highbury, it was always had style. Arsenal always had a great image to it. But going back to what you said about the Herd there, they always. I mean, those old faces are still about Arsenal, and they always had style. Always had, and it was. I think it's because it was a multiracial mob as well. Yeah. Arsenal was, a lot of lads from Jamaican backgrounds, a lot of Greeks and Italians and Irish and everything like that, and obviously the English as well, and everyone mixed together. And Arsenal always had and they weren't the only mob. Like Birmingham were like that as well, and West Ham, they were all quite multiracial.
You're right. I mean, there's no sort of coincidence that Arsenal had that sort of diverse element, because Arsenal had a diverse element full stop in terms of welcoming fans from all over, really. I can tell you, my dad came to Arsenal when he had brown skin in the 70s and stuff, and he never really got any stick. I'm saying there probably was a bit of stick going on, but it was certainly less than Chelsea and West Ham. It
would be less so.
It's no sort of mistake that the NF never took a foothold at Arsenal.
didn't take a foothold at Arsenal. I mean, we know one or two other clubs in London that were. To be fair to our most hated club, I don't think Tottenham was ever quite.
Yeah, well, we don't care about Tottenham, but just in terms of Arsenal.
In terms of it
never took a foothold at Arsenal. Did it?
Never took a foothold at Arsenal. I mean, you had because there were apparently issues on the North Bank, and they got chased out of that sort of thing. Arsenal fans would always stand against that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, you're completely right. And in terms of national fan literature as well, that was never allowed to be sold at Arsenal. It's one of the things I'm most proud about being an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's. Sorry, do you think it's kind of important to tell that side of it in the book as well through the chants? Obviously, moving to the Emirates, there's almost kind of a new generation of Arsenal fans that maybe aren't aware of that history. So
that's what the thing is. I mean, if any group of people are going to buy the book, I'd love young people to read it, because I don't think people always have a sense of history anymore, and you get such a sense of history with the book, and it's good to know the history of the club and where we came from, what we've been like, and things. Everyone assumes that how we are now is how we've always been, and club changes so much throughout the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were sort of talking on that off camera again, just about the fact that when you were a kid, when I was a kid, I'm sure even when Dan was a kid, you'd read everything you could about Arsenal. Certainly, pre social media days, pre-internet days, you were proud of our club's heritage. You want to know everything about it.
What we've won,
games we lost in, the players, former managers, any
highest
sort of anecdotes. Highest ever score, absolutely. 12-0 Loughborough Town, 1900, after losing 8-0 in 1896.
I didn't know
was
that
the other way around. No, it was that way, with 8-0. But and stuff like that, you're proud to know about stuff like that. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. This book, good question, Dan, this book is about maybe getting youngsters to reconnect with the club in terms of history, basically.
Yeah, and just knowing the history, because I mean, knowing about our managers and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of people probably don't even know. They've probably name about 3 Arsenal managers. Maybe they'd name Arsene Wenger, George Graham, Unai Emery. Maybe Herbert Chapman. A lot of people wouldn't know. There's a chapter in there about protest and controversy.
Okay. So what's the earliest, just out of interest, in terms of sort of first protests or first protest songs?
That's a good question. I think in terms of the protest song, we'll go back to Joe Baker. I think that was either the 50s or the 60s, where Joe Baker was sold, and the fans were protesting that. There was a lot of anger about the manager Billy White. England legend Billy White was not a great Arsenal manager in the 1960s, so there was a lot of protest about.
What songs? Can you remember any sort of songs that was?
We want. Oh God. I can't remember offhand right now.
Like you say, it's
Bring Back Joe Baker to me was one of them.
Right,
Bring Back Joe Baker to me was one of them, and then it gets a little bit more. In those days, I don't think the songs are quite as vicious as what they were going to become.
There's a bit more wit and irony in them as well, wasn't there?
So as you get to the 80s, and there was a lot of anger about Terry Neal. The fans wanted Terry Neal out. There was probably a lot more aggressive songs and chanting in that period, as there was when all the Arsene Wenger protests happened. Was that after the Bayern Munich game? Was that 2 years ago now? So going back to in terms of protest, I think in the protest chapter, there's a lot of, probably the last 20 years is where most of them were going back to the Bond days and the destruction of the North Bank in 1991.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot in there about that, but there was this 1960s stuff as well. Billy White,
fantastic,
Joe Baker and stuff like that.
What was the sort of song that you came across that made you laugh? You can remember,
the hooligan songs,
right? Yeah.
The hooligan ones, because there was one that sounded really nice, and I thought that's quite nice for a hooligan song. It was quite charming, and then it was followed by "Hit Him Over the Head with a Baseball Bat." I thought, that's more like it.
Excellent.
But there's loads of the one that made me laugh the most, like I say, those ones that do have a little bit of a edge to it like that. There was "We All Agree Davis is better than Tyson." Now, do you remember
after
what
Glenn Cockrell, with the punch in against Southampton, 2-2 draws,
and that's why I think
September '88. I think
people will find the book interesting, because we go even that one chant. We all agree Davis is better than Tyson, and then that's followed by a song which is Tyson runs from Davis.
Yeah.
Now most fans who are watching this, they probably don't know what I'm talking about, but 1988-89 season, our midfielder Paul Davis knocked out Glenn Cockrell, the Southampton player, on the centre circle. And I've never seen anything like that. Can you recall anything?
I was at the game. Funny enough, one of my mates was there on Saturday. He was there as well. Dan with a flat cap, in case you're watching. And he was the only one out of all of us that spotted it. And he goes, "Oh,
really?
Yeah, he's got him." I didn't see any of it. It was 2-2. I think it was like the 17th September 1988, and it was a 2-2 draw. And there was about 7 minutes of injury time. And Davis had been called up for the England squad. And he basically got that 9-match ban, and basically ruined his international career. But you're absolutely right.
£3,000 fine then.
Yes, yeah.
Lots of money back in those days.
But it's funny how you sort of remember. I would have sung that song as well, basically.
I don't like that because all the comments said this is disgraceful, this is terrible, this is the worst thing ever. Yeah. But the fans on the North Bank actually.
I know, and it was a week after we'd beaten Spurs 3-2 at White Hart Lane as well, so everyone was like buzzing anyway.
But that was an incredible incident, and most fans will never know that incident ever happened. And by reading the book, then I'm not saying it's anything to be proud of, but it's all the bad things and the good things and incredible things and the weird things that is good to know about your football club. And that was an incredible incident. But those songs were related to that, so they stand out.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the essence of being a football fan, isn't it? The rough with the smooth, good times, bad times. There is always that sort of edge of irony and a sort of sardonic wit as well, and just a bit of glint in your eye in terms of wit, basically. And that's the best terrace songs, aren't they?
They're the best ones, and some of the best ones are the cruelest ones, and I don't know if it'd be too nice. I mean, there's a couple in the book about Gary Mabbutt, which which just make you shake your head, but they make you laugh at the same.
Yeah, exactly.
They make you look and thinking.
But listen, you're an author, and you've obviously written a few other books as well. You're big into boxing. I've covered a few bouts at the York Hall in Bethnal Green. I know you've written a really good book on boxing. There's a really funny story. You said you were in New York.
I was at Manhattan, and we're talking about, because being an author is not the best paid job in the world. People think that with my best-selling book that I've had, Theatre of Silence, Lost Soul of Football, that's probably sold about 6,000 copies. I mean, I never made anything. I might break even out of that because authors are not that well paid. And I remember getting called a hypocrite by some fans on YouTube for criticising football ticket pricing and being like, he charges $10.99 for a book. He's a hypocrite.
If you was a mechanic, you wouldn't go and your mate wouldn't come to your car and get your car fixed for nothing.
Exactly.
If you're an author, I've written a couple of books. You wouldn't go, it's a free book, because it's what you produce. If you're a farmer, you wouldn't give a cow away, would you? So,
no.
To stretch your analogy slightly there.
And the thing, like I said, people say he's charging $10.99. Publishers charge $10.99 for a book. An author merely gets a very small percentage.
Don't get me started on publishers, mate. Yeah,
exactly. And so you don't do. And going back to what you said about New York is what makes. Why do you be an author? What's the great things about writing books? And I was in holiday in Manhattan, and I was walking down Broadway. And I looked down on the floor, and there's this homeless guy sitting on the floor, and my book was right by him, and it was in a bit of a bad state, but it was. I had a double take, and this old homeless guy in Manhattan had my book.
How did that make you feel then?
Fantastic! Yeah. It was the best thing ever.
Yeah,
best thing. And I asked him.
Did you talk to him as well?
I said, "Where did you get that book?" He said, "Where did you get that book?" He goes, "I bought it." He goes, "I bought it." And he's a homeless guy.
It's my book.
I said, "It's my book." And he goes, "No, it's my book." I said, "No, it's my book." And I explained to him, because I said, "That's me, Matthew." He goes, "No, no way. And he goes, "Yeah, it's a good book. I said, "Oh."
Brilliant.
And his dog started barking at me. And I said, "Can I get you a coffee or anything like that?" He goes, "You can get me a beer."
Well, at least he's honest.
And I said, so I got him a couple of beers.
Oh, fantastic.
And I saw him again a couple of days later. Bought him another couple of beers because he was a good guy, and he was very complimentary about the book. And I look at you see, like I said, you contrast that with the negativity and people coming up with ill-informed stuff about stuff like that. He's a hypocrite. You contrast that with
absolutely. That, when you put your life and soul into a book as well, it takes over you as well when you do write a book.
It takes over you, and it's very enjoyable writing a book, and it's why you do it.
Yeah.
And like I say, in terms of hours put into doing something, money received back, it's the worst job, it's the worst paid thing in there for most authors. Most authors don't make that much.
Unless you're J.K. Rowling, basically. Yeah.
Unless you're one of the big boys, unless if you're like Tyson Fury's just bought a book out. If you're a big name like that, they're just going to throw money at you. But 99.9% of authors they're not going to make much at all.
Absolutely.
You make a little bit here and there, and that's nice.
Yeah. Well, funny you say that. I mean, I was just to sort of talk about it. I was on the tube. I've only ever seen it once when someone was actually reading my book, and I saw them. Didn't know them from Adam. It was on the tube. And I was like, do I go and say hello to them? They think I'm going to be mad, some sort of nutter on the tube.
Identification out first.
Yeah, exactly. But if you did that on the tube, they'd be like, you'd probably scare them even more. But I know that in terms of sense of someone's actually reading something that you put a lot of effort into.
That's brilliant. And to see someone on the tube reading your book, there's nothing. I've not had that.
Oh, but you've had it in New York, fair play.
That was good. But the funny thing was, really funny, because I remember going out, I've always wanted to see someone on the tube reading my book, never. But I remember going out there thinking, would it be crazy? Because I had the boxing book was released. That had a bit more of a worldwide appeal as opposed to the English football, and I thought, wouldn't it be crazy if I saw someone in America on the underground reading my book? And I thought, no, that's not going to happen. And I saw that guy, that homeless guy, reading the book. I thought, that is fantastic. Yeah, that is absolutely brilliant. And that's the best memory I've got as an author. But there's so many good things. Even we go back to Saturday in the Gunners, all those people enjoying themselves, and it was all inspired by the release of this one.
Absolutely. I think I did a book signing in the Gunners years back, and I just remember drinking lots of tequila, basically. So it's really good fun doing a book signing, especially with riders a night with you boys on Saturday. So
that was it. Yeah,
it did seem like a pretty decent night to be.
And Andy was on your show last week, and Andy put a lot of work into that. So we'd like to thank the riders of the night as well.
Absolutely.
Andy,
huge respect to Andy and the boys. Yeah,
those guys have been going for quite a few years. So they're really good. If you could call them, you call them pub rock as opposed to punk. It's really good music. Yeah, exactly. Really good. They're a really good little act. You know, they're not. Maybe they're too niche to make it.
Well, let's hope so, because they deserve it, don't they?
They're a real old-fashioned proper London working class pub rock band, and if people get it, look up the Riders on YouTube. You know, they've got a Christmas song as well, I think.
It was.
What I get for Christmas, I don't know. It's worth looking up. Look at Riders on the Night Christmas.
Drunk by the sounds of it. Certainly the crowd was, anyway.
I think that's what it's about. Yeah.
But listen, mate, absolutely huge respect. Thanks for coming on. It's been really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Talk us through the book. Have you got any book signings, or where can people buy the book then?
People can, for signed copies, people can go to, from both authors, people can go to Legends Publishing.
Okay.
And buy that.
That's a good label as well.
It's a very good label. It's a one-man. Dave Lane is a one-man band.
Yeah.
And I've had four publishers. Two have been one-man bands, and two have had a position in every role. And the bigger publishers, and the best two publishers I've worked for have been the one-man band, because they care so much about what they're doing. So you could go to Legends Publishing. It's being released on Amazon as well.
Okay, brilliant.
Anytime from Thursday, 28th of November, you can buy it on Amazon, and it can be ordered from any bookshop. Fantastic. There is any bookshop, and for signed copies, you could go to if you want to support the high street. Foyles on Charing Cross Road will always have copies.
Favourite bookshops, that, because you can never find anything there.
Well, they support,
which means you can stay there longer, basically. Yeah, so I love a bookshop.
Foyles always support. Yeah, Foyles give a chance to anyone. They'll look at a book and say, "We'll give it." If it's no good, they'll say, "No, we're not interested." Yeah. But if something looks like it could sell, they say, "Yeah, we'll give that a go."
Absolutely.
So the book will be. You can get it on various different channels, and we do. Me and Mark, we very much appreciate people who support us in terms of buying a book, because it's hard to sell books these days. Yeah. It's hard to sell Blu-rays and stuff that people think they should be for free.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that everything should be for free now, and I'm not saying they're wrong in that, but those who do go out and buy books and support stuff, we really appreciate that. You know, it's people pay their money to buy our book. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. I know Gooner Fanzine, we've got a lot of book readers and book publishers as well, and book buyers, basically, I should say. So hopefully, maybe a few people buy your book on the back of tonight. But thank you so much for coming in, mate. Really, really appreciate it. We've got a competition with the book as well. We'll have further details about it on our Twitter feed, and we'll do a video piece near Christmas as well. But yeah, buy the book, support your local high street, support genuine Arsenal fans who care about
Let's
the club.
get some of the chants going as well.
Let's get some of the chants going. Absolutely, Dan, man.
On that note, I don't want to go over the time here, but that'd be great if some of the chants get a rebirth through the book. But for that to happen, people have to buy the book. They have to make it big. Buy the book in the thousands,
tens of thousands. Let's go for it. Yeah. Brilliant, Matt. Top man. Huge respect. Thank you.
Cheers, Layth.
Cheers, mate.